And now, in Alan's Archives presentation.
Dinosaur.
Right?
Dinosaur, fantastic. And then Rock and Rollercoaster
Right.
is a really big deal to me. And you have a picture that I really hope you can pull up that I think is, I don't know what type of street cred that is, but it's some sort of street cred, because I don't think this picture is incredible.
I think I can bring up, it's the next one, I think.
And it's you with the whole band, and not only the whole band, but also the two actors in that bit before the ride starts. I don't know when you would ever get all these people together in the same outfit looking like this. This is so historic. This is such a big deal to, I guess, Disney park enthusiasts and people that enjoy the history behind it.
It was a remarkable time, and it's crazier than it looked. There was a lot on the line with that. We were shooting with IMAX size negative at 60 frames a second, so there was a lot of film churning through that camera.
Wow.
And while you're shooting that fast, and we were trying to do that to fool your eyes so that you don't feel like you're watching a movie. You feel like you're seeing real flesh and blood people. So we went, if you have motion blur and even have depth of field built in for you, oh, you're looking at a movie. So we went, how do we hold depth of field from the foreground all the way to the back of the room, to the back of the alley when they open the door? So you got to pour tons of light on it. And then after you've made it work beautiful for like a normal size film and 24 frames a second, now you kick it up to 60 frames and a giant negative. Now that much light is not anywhere near enough. So you have to pour huge amounts of light into it. And then it became super hot and super unsafe, so we had to do safety contacts for people that were closest to some of the lights to wear. Otherwise it could damage their eyes. And it was just like the hottest day in Death Valley. It just was so uncomfortable. And as director, it's my job to get this scene, right? You go, well, you can't use cuts and use best of both bits from different scenes. It's supposed to be not supposed to be a movie. It's one take. It just all happens at once. So you're like, well, I'll just call cut and I'll do take two. And they're like, no. If you've filmed for longer than 30 seconds, there's not enough film in the rest of the whole reel for a take two, because you're going 60 frames a second with giant film, and there's only so much you can hold in a magazine. So every roll of film is one take.
Oh, no.
And if anybody forgets their lines, even in the last 5 seconds, you throw the whole roll of film away. And so, and it's expensive, and they've traveled, and it was the morning after they had performed on the Oscars, so the night before they'd done Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
Were they all sober?
Yes.
Wow.
They were
all these rock stars.
They were
Aerosmith,
in fact Stephen was like working out on like a treadmill thing when I came in. He was like really ready to go.
Wow.
But we're troopers about it. And then I go to them and say, we really have to get this, so we all have to find a way to get in our groove. And so my job was to feel all that tension and shield them from it. But no, I can't just do this forever. We have to get it. But my job was how to make them feel comfortable and not panic in that situation.
Right.
So you're like, well, what can you say that just it's easy to remember, and like, oh, let's try this, let's rehearse, and you get them in the groove. And so you're trying to get them calm was the main thing. And then I have to explain to them, by the way, you're going to hear this loud noise. So the whole time we're shooting, it's going to be loud, and it's because even with a cocoon around the camera to deaden the sound, it's still going to get through because it's a giant camera with giant film, and so it's going to ruin all the sound. So I'm going to have to come to Boston and re-record every line you say as ADR. But if you relax today and go, well, I don't have to say the line great because I'll just do it in ADR when he comes out next week, not going to work. Because you can't take a lousy performance and then do ADR, a great performance, into it. It has to be the committed performance now,
Right.
knowing that you're going to have to redo that in front of a microphone again. So there's a lot going on, and there wasn't an endless stack of film. The producer never told me how many stacks of film, but when I would go through a take, I went, hey, that's one less roll. But eventually I got the take, and we all celebrated, and they never told me. They never pulled back the curtain to go, there was one left or 5 left, I don't know.
Right.
But also we used so much power that our team had to warn the city that when the grid would suddenly pulse, it was us. That we did tests, and they saw anomaly on the whole grid, even when we did the tests. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And I remember calling. I said, they're going to kill us if we don't tell them. I said, if Aerosmith comes to the set and they walk into this blinding hot Death Valley, they're going to kill me.
Yeah.
So I said, we have to tell them. And they're like, no, I'm not wanting to tell them. I said, no, we have to tell them. So I found somebody that was working with them in wardrobe that was there early, and they were. So I said, I want you to come with me onto the set, and I want you to feel what they're going to go through. And they're like, oh, I've been on a set before. No, come here. So then I said, turn on the lights, and they did, and it was like radiation just, and they ran off the set, and they got on their phone. Immediately it was like, holy shit! So they called ahead, and first thing when Steven and the guys arrived, they're like, where's the oven, man? You got to take us to the oven. And that first thing we wanted to do was feel it. And then they were like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna tough this out, you know. And then they made shirts for them, like we survived the rock and roller toaster. So they did a toaster with flames coming out of it.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then I went and recorded with them in Boston, and they were great. It's like their drummer has the cutest thing. He would fidget and make noise in front of the microphone, and so we had to find a way to calm him down. So he finally found this fidget thing where you just take a big paper clip and unfold it and use it almost like little bicycle pedals. That kept him from banging anything and making noise. And so he recorded all his ADR doing that. And Steven told me at the end of that, he said, look, if this isn't right, if you get back and you put it on the ADR and it still is not right, it just, we'll do it again. He goes, whatever it takes. He goes, this has got to be there forever. We want to do this right. We don't want to cheap out on it. So like, just as long as you need us, we're there. So it was very cool. And I'm glad to see they're doing a tour now.
They're doing a tour?
They are. They're doing
Aerosmith
like
was my first concert. I was like, I think 12, and my dad took me, or 10. So very early age.
I listened to their music. I loved it, and I had no idea I would ever be directing them.
It's so cool.
Just was crazy.
You feel like you're in the room with them. You're feeling them being themselves, which is great. And we have a question.
So for those of us that are younger, can you explain Rock and Rollercoaster? And if you have some footage or non-Floridian people, love to know more about what Rock and Rollercoaster is.
Just around the corner from the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is the Rock and Rollercoaster.
It is a show. I don't have footage, but I have a picture here of the outside of the venue that shows the big Stratocaster. And it is a roller coaster, and the conceit is you're going into a sound studio where Aerosmith, the band, has been recording. And so you go in and you look through the double glass, which is what you're used to seeing in a recording studio, and then in the middle room there's instruments laid out, there's drums and guitars and everything, and microphones. And then you see on the other side of the space is the engineer's booth. So you see his double glass, and you see him sitting at the mixing board. And it just so happens that and so the person taking you through is they were just here recording. We just missed their set. So you think you're not going to see them. But instead, oh, look, they're still listening back to tracks with the audio engineer. So they're leaning over his shoulder, playing stuff back and listening, so that you just sort of catch them doing their business there with him. And then they notice you. Oh, hey, look, people are here. So then they say hi to you, and then their limousine comes to pick them up to take them to their concert. And they're like, hey, we got this concert coming up. Maybe we can take some of you people with us. So we're going to have a limo waiting outside. So they have their agent call the limo to say, pick the people up. She's trying to deal with that, and on top of just getting them to the concert. So they promise there's going to be a limo for you. They take off to go to the show, and you go out and get in your roller coaster, which is styled to look like a stretch limo.
Nice.
And when you take off, it's like one of those nice just start from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, where it's just on a flat space. And then it does somersaults and spirals and everything, and you are listening to Aerosmith music the whole time. So they'll have going down when you plummet down. And they rode it a bunch of times. Steven and the guys rode it again and again to try to pick songs that would go to different parts of the experience. So yeah, they came out before we even filmed. They just rode it to try to
So cool.
get a feel for it. And then when you finish the ride, instead of it just being over, we had a little flavor to leave at the end. The limousine's job was to get you to the concert. So then I have footage that I shot separately, not in the Death Valley set. I filmed it the next day with them on a normal stage, where it's standard coverage you would expect to see from a rock concert, with like a big crane moving up to them on the stage. And they're finishing a song, and the audience cheers and they're waving to you. So it's as if you have arrived at the arena and you're now seeing them perform. So it's like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I have a story. My grandma came to visit on my dad's side, and my mom was like, "Oh, this ride is like, there's nice lights, there's Aerosmith music, and it takes you through a nice journey." And almost killed her mother-in-law, taking her on that ride thinking it was going to be something smooth. She had no idea it was going to be like that.
My
and
God.
I remember that day. I remember
What a
how,
trick.
Yeah, and it was like, she didn't tell her kids anything. We had other family that were there too, and they didn't know about the joke. It was
funny.
Yeah, it was really something. It is Florida history. It's so great that people can hear about this now.
And I'm glad it was built in a spot that can still be its home. The alien encounter, you were talking about that. That we installed in the Magic Kingdom, where I think it couldn't stay. Sadly, it was a.
The new rock and roller coaster starring Aerosmith, now jamming at the Disney MGM Studios.